Just a 10% increase in calories from UPFs increases your risk of death by 15%. The choice to prioritize real foods can literally save your life. Even a relatively small 10% decrease can reduce your risk of all forms of chronic disease. Hi everyone, welcome back to Extend, where we're going to explore how to live healthier and longer with small, meaningful changes. Today, we're diving into a topic that I consider the 20% of the information that you need to know that moves the needle 80% of the way, as far as I'm concerned, with your nutrition. When I talk to my patients about their diet and nutrition, they're often shocked to hear that I tell them, I don't care what you eat. As long as you avoid ultra-processed manufactured food, there is a very high likelihood that you will lose weight, turn around metabolic disease, and reduce your chance of getting chronic disease. So, what exactly is an ultra-processed food? And why are they so dangerous anyway? Most importantly, how can you cut them out of your life? This podcast episode is going to answer those three questions for you in detail. Let's start with answering the question, what are ultra-processed foods? Well, the term ultra-processed, or UPFs, comes from the NOVA classification system described by Monteiro and team in an article published in 2019 from Brazil. NOVA is a Portuguese word for new classification. Monteiro and their team reside in Brazil, so that's why Portuguese. In order to review many studies on how UPFs, short for ultra-processed food, it's necessary to be very specific in your definition. His team categorized foods by the extent of industrial processing they undergo into 4 groups. So NOVA Group 1 are foods that are unprocessed or minimally processed, foods like fresh fruits, vegetables, and unprocessed grains, and responsibly raised meats and fish. NOVA Group 2 are processed culinary ingredients like oils, salts, and sugar. Many vegetable oils and seed oils are highly refined. The refining process removes beneficial compounds like antioxidants, vitamins, and polyphenols. And it actually adds harmful compounds when used in high heats like trans fats and free radicals. Also, they have a pretty bad inflammatory profile. Many processed oils are high in omega-6 fatty acids, which can promote chronic inflammation. NOVA Group 3 are foods like canned vegetables and baked breads, processing that humans have invented over hundreds of years to try to not starve. NOVA Group 3 foods are less processed, but still not great for you. Most bread contains refined grains, which are high in gluten and cause metabolic disease. And then there's NOVA Group 4. These ultra-processed foods are really scary. These are formulations of substances extracted from foods, combined with additives and manufactured to be ready to eat, hyper-palatable, meaning really tasty, and almost very addictive. This is no longer real food. They're a combination of chemicals, industrial ingredients, sugar, salt, and bad-for-you additives and colorings that are marketed in bright boxes that are made to trick you into thinking that they're okay to eat. Some examples of UPFs include sugary cereals that we buy for our kids, packaged snacks like chips and cookies, instant noodles, soda, and even protein bars. These foods are engineered to last longer, look appealing, and taste irresistible. They're found in your pantry and in the center of the American supermarket, taking up a majority of the square footage. It's estimated that 73% of the U.S. food supply is now ultra-processed, which puts them front and center in our lives every day. And remember, it wasn't like this 60 years ago. This is a modern-day disaster created solely for corporate profits. So let's now answer the next question. Why are ultra-processed foods so dangerous? Studies have repeatedly shown the dangers of UPFs. Let's take a look at the numbers. First, mortality risk. A systematic review of 207,000 plus people done in 2021 found that for every 10% increase in daily caloric intake from ultra-processed foods, that there's a 15% higher risk of all-cause mortality. 15%. This includes deaths mainly from cardiovascular disease and heart disease. The same number, 15% increase in death, which shows that there's a real danger here. Ultra-processed foods are nutrient-poor and packed with calories from sugar, unhealthy fats, and refined starches. Also, they lack fiber, protein, and essential vitamins, leaving your body starving for nutrients even after eating a very large portion. Ultra-processed foods are hunger amplifiers. They're designed to be hyper-palatable, which means they're loaded with additives like artificial flavors, sweeteners, and emulsifiers that trick your brain into wanting more. Studies suggest that these foods trigger a low satiety response, meaning you're hungry again right after eating. And they also decrease production of GLP-1, a key hormone made by our microbiome to tell us that we're full. Long-term consumption of ultra-processed foods has been linked to obesity, high blood pressure, metabolic syndrome, and inflammation. And these foods don't just harm your body, they're also disrupting your gut microbiome. They're increasing your risk of inflammatory disease. They also contain many chemicals and colorings and additives that poison our mitochondria, slow our metabolism, disturb our hormonal balance, and cause plaque in our arteries. In addition, packaged foods contain chemicals like bisphenols, phthalates, furans, and others that are produced during processing and packaging. Also, the packaging itself has microplastics and other chemicals that end up being consumed. I hope I don't have to say more about the negative aspects of these frankenfoods, as Dr. Mark Hyman likes to call them. They really should not be called food in the first place. They're chemical concoctions with minimal nutritional value that are destroying our health and make us feel terrible. So what can we do? Well, the first step is to learn how to spot ultra-processed foods in the wild. Look at the ingredient list. Just the very fact that there's an ingredient list should tell you something. If you see items like high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, hydrolyzed proteins, artificial sweeteners, that's ultra-processed. When you look at an ingredients list, the ingredients are listed by order of weight. So the first few ingredients are the main contents of the food. You should also watch for cosmetic additives like artificial colors, flavor enhancers, thickeners, and emulsifiers. These are designated to make the food hyper-palatable. Finally, remember that simplicity is the key. If a product has a long, complicated ingredient list, usually more than 6 ingredients, it's full of things that you don't want to eat. More than 6 ingredients is a definite sign that it's probably something that you shouldn't consume and it's an ultra-processed food. Okay, so now that you know how to recognize these foods, let's review some practical strategies to reduce ultra-processed foods in your day-to-day. Remember, it's not just about perfection all the time. Even a 10 to 20% reduction in intake can have a massive difference. By slowly adding another 10% every month of reduction, you can virtually eliminate ultra-processed foods over the course of a year. Also know that cutting out ultra-processed doesn't mean you have to give up convenience or flavor. In fact, most people end up enjoying food so much more after they make these changes. It also does not mean that you're going to be hungry. You'll actually feel more full the way you're supposed to feel after eating a meal. Here are some practical steps and suggestions that you can take to start making meaningful changes. Step 1, cleanse your home. This may seem drastic, but stick with me here. Sometimes a drastic move is the easiest way to chalk up a quick win. So go out there and get a big box. And with your significant other or family member, empty your kitchen and pantry of all the items that you believe are ultra-processed based on the definitions we went over. All packaged food with long ingredient labels, seed and vegetable oils that's stored away in your cabinets. All the snacks, desserts, cookies, chips, and cereals that take up all the cabinet room and the pantry space that you have. I know this sounds like a major purge, and it may even be painful to let some of this stuff go, but I promise you, your body's going to thank you for it. You may want to go online and find a nutritionist to come help you do this, educate you, and to take the next step. So step 2 is to go shopping with a nutritionist and shop the perimeter of the grocery store first. Our U.S. grocery stores are cleverly designed to maximize your spend as you get lost in aisle after aisle of heavily misleading advertising. Stick to the outer aisles where fresh produce, meats, and dairy are located. Avoid the inner aisles that are packed with ultra-processed foods, trying to convince you they're not that bad for you. Step 3, just try to cook at home. Start with 1 meal a week. Start with simple recipes using fresh, minimally processed ingredients. Try batch cooking on weekends to save time during the week. Put up 3 to 5 quick recipes on your refrigerator door that you can easily make within minutes that don't have long ingredient lists. Prepare and plan ahead. Keep a stash of minimally processed snacks for when you're on the go. This helps you avoid convenience foods in hunger emergencies when we're at our weakest. Replace chips and cookies with whole foods and options like nuts, seeds, or fruit. Also, keep your own stash at work so you can avoid the lunchroom cookies and donuts. Finally, and final step here, is find local restaurants and fast food places that specialize in healthier options and keep this list handy on your phone. As you visit these places, look up their menus before you go to the restaurant and fill in the healthiest choices on your notepad under the name of the restaurants. You can even upload the menu to ChatGPT now and ask it to find you the top 3 healthiest options. Bottom line, ultra-processed foods are everywhere, but you don't have to let them dominate your diet. By understanding what they are and why they're harmful and how to recognize them, you can take control of your health one meal at a time. And remember that study that we mentioned earlier? Just a 10% increase in calories from UPFs increases your risk of death by 15%. The choice to prioritize real foods can literally save your life. Even a relatively small 10% decrease can reduce your risk of all forms of chronic disease.